Welcome to our first post-game Irish Illustrated Insider podcast of the 2025 season. This one should be a hoot. I'm Tim O'Malley, joined today by John Bryce of Football Scoop, Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, and Pete Sampson of The Athletic. Guys, Notre Dame started 0-1, just like everyone predicted. And since the four of us have obviously instantly analyzed, we've overtimed, we've independently podcasted, I want to begin this question for Pete. Does a bye week come at a good time, Pete?
Oh yeah, I'm exhausted, so a bye week comes at a great time. You're asking about me, right? My
Yes,
personal
yes, for you
preferences.
specifically.
Yeah, I mean, like I get it that in CJ Carr references like getting back to work right away. I think that they have enough stuff to work on that they could use a little extra time. And you're minus 1 day anyway. I mean, would you really want to play Texas A&M on Saturday?
No,
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 you wouldn't.
no.
So I think the bye week, ironically, comes at a good time in week two.
My question for Priester and JB before we get started is, does it seem like this game ended 36 hours ago only? A lot has happened in our lives.
I actually walked in the door at 11 p.m. last night, so I'm not sure what day of the week it is, but it is a good time for a bye week for all of us.
Yes.
Tim, I said real quickly, after I rewatch the game, I look at one of three ways. Either it's the same as what I saw in person, it's worse than what I saw in person, or better than what I saw in person. And then I'll just throw it back to you. I thought it was better than what I saw in person. I understand all the blemishes and the problems along both lines and what happened. But the Miami coaching staff is tortured if that game goes into overtime and they lose because they so conservatively approached offense after the turnover with 3 runs. Now I realize most of those 3 runs were netting first downs earlier in the game,
Yeah.
but they were conservative after that and conservative on the game-winning drive. So the narrative would be completely different if Carter Davis misses that, what have you. But he didn't.
Regarding the narrative, I kind of want to start with this anyway, so I'll go to JB. We had a lot of questions, Bryce, on because we all talked about we felt Notre Dame was timid offensively, maybe defensively as well, just not the same as Marcus Freeman in big games. So a few people just ask, was this more ND being flat and its mindset being off versus the O line and D line got their ass kicked in the first half or the first 3 quarters?
I think it's the latter. I think that I was just making this point this morning on the Football Scoop podcast as well. One thing about Marcus Freeman's team, they've lost some games. I don't think I don't remember them not meeting the moment physically, emotionally, from an investment standpoint. And maybe they were incapable of meeting the moment physically through 3 quarters Sunday night against Miami. And I wrote this on Football Scoop. Miami out Notre Dame to Notre Dame. Like Miami won that game because it was not the speed and finesse of Miami. It was the physical power of Notre Dame in Miami uniforms Sunday night. I really firmly believe that. And I think the challenge will be how Notre Dame responds and rediscovers the physicality, the edge. I mean, this is a Notre Dame team that under Marcus Freeman has very much adopted his persona and has played with that edge. I mean, look, they were so out talented in 2022 to open that season at Ohio State, but they battled their asses off for 4 quarters and had a lead deep into the second half of that game because they were meeting the moment physically and because they were aggressive. As Pete has noted, sometimes too aggressive if you're double safety blitzing and leaving it open in the middle of the field in the end zone. But they were, by God, aggressive. And I don't know how many times Sunday night we looked at that and said Notre Dame was, by God, aggressive. They were not. They were met at the line of scrimmage rather than meeting at the line of scrimmage. And we talked going in, and I had wondered aloud. We felt Notre Dame believed it would win. We said Miami believed it could win. Well, I think it's very clear Miami believed it would win, and I did not like what I saw in that moment from Notre Dame. I would be positively flat out stunned if Notre Dame doesn't meet the moment physically against Texas A&M.
Pete, before we get to the offense, because you tweeted about this and it was put on our board, they rushed Carson Beck 17 times with 4 pass rushers and got pressure on him once. Saw another stat where Beck was just 4.8 yards per attempt when he was blitzed. lack of aggression defensively. I think that was a big part of this.
Yeah, no, and maybe in some ways like overrating how good you thought your defensive line was. Because I don't remember Marcus Freeman talking about like we got to get pressure with four, we got to get pressure with four as much as he did after the game. Like, well, that's awesome. Like everyone in the world wants to do that, but you got to have a defensive line capable of getting pressure with four, and they had essentially Boubacar Traore, and that was kind of it in terms of pressure. Like Jared Dawson did some good things. And I think another stat that I kind of got in the weeds with last night, Havoc plays, which is just TFLs plus forced fumbles plus INTs plus PBUs. They had five against Miami in Al Golden's 3 years. They averaged 11 per game. But Ohio State in 22, they only have four. So I think a pretty charitable reading of that would be a new defense coordinator needs more than one game to understand his own personnel. Um, but there's I think we all got used to Notre Dame forcing the issue on defense, and they kind of let Miami come to them as if Carson Beck had 3 career starts and not 30. I just thought that was I don't know. Maybe Chris Ash needs a little bit more time to understand what he's got and what he doesn't.
I personally underrated Miami's wideouts a little bit. Not CJ Daniels because I knew what he could do. Wow, was that a
Yeah.
that play was as spectacular as the one that Malachi Fields made, going up with two hands and the ball's already through his fingertips, and he still reels it in. But we had heard about Malachi Tony during the preseason, but we hadn't seen him, and he was really really good. He was a tough matchup. The BYU transfer, Keelan Marion was good too. And I've been saying it since April that Carson Beck was being underrated by Notre Dame fans, and he wasn't spectacular, but he was every bit the veteran that he needed to be. He showed more mobility, I think, than we anticipated. He used his feet at times to keep the possession in favor of Miami. Um,
I mean, Tim, if you think about it, he was pressured on both touchdown passes.
yeah,
Obviously, he was pressured heavily on one, but he was pressured on the throw that came across the hash marks. That I know it beat Carson Hobbs, but there was a lot of confusion with the Don Schuler's coverage on that play. It certainly looked like a Don Schuler did not need to squat inside on the hash from where he lined up as opposed to where Talich lined up, or you're just asking Carson Hobbs to have the toughest cover of the day.
yeah. And Schuler's getting criticized a lot, and the touchdown pass. I think I understand what he did a little bit more now having watched it, because I mean, he's looking at the ball and that ball's overthrown, right? I mean, his instinct is that ball is overthrown, and I'm going to make the interception. And during that split second, CJ Daniels, is a condor and reaches up and gets a hand on it. So, but a lot of people were saying this, and I think this is something that we said on more than one occasion in the preseason. Xavier Watts is going to be missed tremendously. His last 2 seasons at Notre Dame were College Football Hall of Fame seasons, and they don't have that now. Stroman played well, but
He did, but there's a
not
different
Xavier
world.
Watts.
Yeah,
Well,
he's a different
yeah.
world when Watts isn't back there. We have some later on this segment with some things that we were right about and wrong about. That was definitely one we were right about. That was going to be an issue that people didn't want to hear as August progressed. I get why people don't want to hear those things, and also he's gone. You got to do something about it. He's gone, right? There's nothing you could do with Xavier Watts gone. He's not coming back. Offensively, I think everyone here is old enough to remember the horizontal hold on the TV screens we used to have. Well, there was a horizontal hold on Notre Dame's passing game there for way too long. Guys, I was shocked at one point. Somebody said, I think they were trying to set up the screen pass with a bubble screen, which was just one of the better ways of looking at the game. And at some point, Priester was on the right. I'm going to sell you out here, but it was the funniest line I've heard in a while. We were driving home, and Priester goes, they got confused with the sideline, thinking it was the goal line. Throwing to the side.
They had more yards passing horizontally than they did vertically.
Yeah, I mean, explanations, guys, on that. Obviously, we can get into this a little deeper, but all right, Pete, you mentioned opening the game with it, you understand, and then
Yeah, I thought it was really smart to open it. And like in that, I would say it was smart to open that way, even if Jordan Faison got tackled on one of those 2 runs. Like you're trying to okay, how's Miami going to play this? Denbrock likes to come out and show you a lot early to see how you react to it, and then adjust late. but he just kept showing the same stuff that they showed early. I did not like that. It puts too much onus on the quarterback to make decisions, not just like where the ball is going to go, but whether I should throw it or whether I should run it or whether I should hand off. Like, let's have CJ Carr do a little bit less. And one of the things he should have done less was that RPO in the fourth quarter that turned into a pick. I do not. There's something was off with Marcus Freeman's explanation with it because he's like at halftime we said we don't need to lock in more to Jeremiah Love's run. Well,
He didn't
you
carry
didn't
it in the first series.
you didn't do any like it. Either Denbrock didn't get the message or Carr didn't get the message or they just ignored it. Like it did. That didn't add up. That if this was a halftime adjustment you made in the fourth quarter, you make the mistake that you were trying to adjust out of from the first half. It was just that was it felt the last part is like it felt like a game plan, knowing we can't block them, we can't protect the quarterback.
They didn't let in the first Notre Dame's first possession, which didn't come till midway. First possession in the second half didn't come until midway through the third quarter.
Yeah, you
And
know
Love,
why?
Love didn't. Well, I know they marched right down, but Love didn't touch the ball in that series. Then.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to JB here because you know why they didn't get the ball for 7 minutes? They couldn't get the ball back for Miami for 7 minutes because they were getting pushed. And JB, I mentioned before you joined off air, I think Notre Dame's coaching staff went into this game saying also, I want to see if we can block them because they found out quickly they couldn't. I mean, Carr's pressure on four-man rush, every time he dropped back, I thought he just isn't going to have time to look deep. Sometimes you're like, I kept saying, what in the world is going on? Vertical, vertical, vertical. But maybe they just felt he's not going to have time.
Yeah, I think part of that was easing him in. Certainly, they did not have consistent time. I didn't think that early in the game that necessarily we were getting a chance to see if Miami's rush would absolutely get home with 4 against Notre Dame's 5. Later in the game, I thought it was probably a little more pronounced, and certainly the last possession we know it was on either flank. But I thought that yeah, they did some stuff early to try and loosen that up so that they could protect better. I also wonder, and this was the least amount any of us has seen in a preseason camp since Marcus took over. I wonder how much there was maybe a little fool's gold for Notre Dame's defense because of how successful we heard it was all preseason camp against the Notre Dame offensive line. And we know that defense exited Notre Dame's preseason camp feeling like they had cooked the offense pretty much day in and day out, and that they had generated a lot of quarterback pressure with their 4. They had a lot of sacks with their 4, and they had a lot of success. And I think that maybe that gave Notre Dame a little bit of a false sense of how effective they would be against the Miami offensive line that I talked to Miami people. Mario Cristobal went out and specifically reinvested or invested via the portal and NIL into becoming an offensive line driven team. And he's an old offensive line coach. He's an old offensive lineman. That's what he wants. That's what he believes in. That's a Miami offensive line that's got a guy at 340, another guy at 345 that averages somewhere around 330 to 335 pounds a man. It'll be probably the biggest line I think that Notre Dame will see all year. Texas A&M will certainly be close. But yeah, Notre Dame couldn't get home against theirs, and Notre Dame couldn't effectively protect against theirs. I know we're going to get into all this. We've talked about the Jagasaw injury of July 4th, and we'll save this, I'm sure, for bigger discussion as we unfold today. I still maintain the Gerby Lambert spring injury is far more of an issue today than we probably realized 6 months ago.
Priester, I don't know if you noticed this or not when you had your review of the game or watching live, but Jeremiah Love didn't seem to get the ball as much as we all thought he might. I am a little, I want to push back against the one theory that they needed to throw to him more. That has not yet proven successful on game days, other than the occasional very well set up same old, running back screen or the throwback screen. Of course, Louisville, he helped win the game. He had one of those against, I believe, was it Northern? No, Northern Illinois was a rushing touchdown. He's had 2 throwback screens that were really nice plays. Other than that, we have not yet seen Jeremiah Love make an impact in the passing game. So my issue was not running the ball enough with him and Price.
I agree. I mean, obviously their short passing game to him is not functioning smoothly right now, and so I don't know that that's the best alternative. Handing it to him is the best and easiest alternative, but you got to be able to block those guys up front. So, you know, I have a Jadarian Price fumbles. It's a really bad fumble because it didn't look like really hard contact, and you're inside the 5, and you can't do that. But he also just had a 30-yard run to the goal line or inside the 5, and I just don't believe. I mean, do you don't? I realize it's completely different, but you don't yank a quarterback after an interception. I understand there are demands at the running back position, but then I mean, he's a significant weapon, and you essentially take him out of the game plan at that point.
I don't think he came back in other than because Love needed a break. When he ended up on the field, it looked like Love got hit pretty good on a either a run or a short catch. I can't remember. They're all the same thing. To the field side, he got popped going out of bounds. Stated one more play, and then Price came in. I agree with you. I think you have to trust him. Again, now that of course you and I might not be saying this if that fumble got popped loose and went 99 yards
No, no doubt.
instead of
And
CJ Carr diving
we're
on it.
not standing on the sideline coaching the game and
Yeah.
dealing with the emotions that they are when something like that happens. I understand.
And maybe he fumbled twice on August 20th.
Yep, yep. I
You know,
get that. But that's a pretty big weapon to remove from the equation when you need a big play.
One quick thing, because I was charting this in game, not just against game clock, but actual clock. So Miami scores its touchdown at 8:29 p.m. and then Jeremiah Love gets the ball on second down immediately following the ensuing possession. So about 8:31, 8:32, Jeremiah Love gets a second down carry. He does not get another carry, another rush until 10:08 p.m. I understand you have halftime during this and everything. You can't go 90 damn minutes without Jeremiah
When
Love
did
getting a run. I don't
when
care.
did you well, JB, this isn't the first time you've mentioned like actual time. When did you start charting things like that? I think it's great. I mean, I think it's really
I did
cool.
it for the first time in 2015 when I was a sideline reporter because a guy went to the locker room injured, and I didn't want to know how many game minutes he was gone. I wanted to know how many minutes he was in the locker room, and he was in the locker room. It was Kurt Magid, and he was in the locker room for 17 minutes. And I still remember it because it was my first ever game as a sideline reporter in the SEC. And so I started doing it then, and then sometimes you'll get really lucky and I think I did it a few years ago when Ian Book led that late touchdown drive against Virginia Tech to keep alive Notre Dame's home winning streak and Notre Dame's ACC winning streak. And I just started writing down the time, the moments in time, because it's not just the game clock. It's 5:15. What were you doing when Ian Book, took it around right in and
Yeah.
outraged Virginia Tech's defense into the end zone. So that's why I did that because it's handy to know that like, okay, yeah, it was 13 minutes of game time or whatever it was, but it was actually 95 minutes of life.
Before we wrap up segment one, two quick questions for everybody. Concerns, number one concern after game one, and number one reason for optimism. Priester, you go first.
Defensive tackle, although I was very encouraged by Dawson and Rubio, uh, CJ Carr is going to be really, really good.
The offensive line, I think, is a huge issue right now. So that would be number one for me by far. Reason for optimism, the rest of the team is really good, like really good. They lost by 3 points to a top 10 team on the road with a first time starting quarterback. Like I, I realize people don't want to hear like it's fine, but like we have this predictive model at the Athletic that we use for the playoff, and Notre Dame after this week one loss has dropped all the way to the 7 seed where they're hosting a home playoff game. Like it's fine. Like it's just fine. Like Notre Dame's coaches get paid a lot of money to figure this stuff out. The offensive line is the by far the biggest issue to me to get figured out. The rest of the stuff I think is I don't want to say like light work for the staff, but like I'm highly confident they'll get the rest of this stuff sorted.
Yeah, I think for me that's a great point on both of those. The overall sum of the Notre Dame parts, specifically CJ Carr, I think has he's tantalized us with the feeling that he can be elite, that we've talked for so long about his ceiling. And in game one, in about as hard of an environment as you could ever ask for an opening start, we saw glimpses of that very considerable ceiling. I think it's a really good roster. I would also point to Malachi Fields being like a huge element of encouragement. I don't give a crap about the fumble. I mean, it's terrible that it happened, of course, but go look at the grown men plays he made in that game. And then yeah, I couldn't be more with Pete. Like for this to be an O line and D line driven program, those are two issues, but especially on the offensive line. And I know we're going to break it down more.
Yeah.
But that spring injury to Gerby Lambert, I think, was felt Sunday night every bit as much, if not more so, than the Charles Jagasaw injury.
I think the positive takeaway is that you will not see Notre Dame's defense play like that again. At least the defensive ends, linebackers, learning safeties, and the corners and nickels. Um, Look, I have to point out one more time how much crap I took for writing this on August 20th when camp broke. I think they have 5 rotational defensive tackles. Everybody tried to tell me Jason Onye is going to be an NFL draft pick. I hope he's an NFL draft pick someday. But they have 5 rotational defensive tackles. All right. And I did not expect them to have 5 rotational offensive linemen in this game.
No,
Yeah,
because
that's
I'm
the
not
issue.
sure they had 5.
No, that's true.
I don't mean that in a good way.
So the defensive tackles, if you just next time don't listen to when a head coach just says something, all right, you use your own what we've used for 9 months. I am shocked that the offensive line played like that. Now I want to point out real fast before we jump to segment 2. The offensive line was terrible in 2020 in game number 1 for 3 quarters. Can you believe that? Against Duke at home. Awful. The 2020 offensive line.
That's
So
why
game
I
one
say
is tough. Game
yeah,
one, yeah.
that's why I say interior defensive line because I mean I don't think that this is going to be a bad Notre Dame offensive line.
You
We've
shouldn't
still
say it after one game, but you
no,
are
and
you're on pause right now.
right, but we're
Yep.
and we still don't have evidence that the defensive line interior defensive line is as good as what Marcus Freeman said preseason. So that's why I hear what you guys are saying, but I'm more
No, I'm with you.
confident
They're
that
rotational. Those guys
yeah,
are rotational.
the offensive line I think will be okay moving forward.
With football season approaching, I've been looking to find the best deals on Notre Dame tickets, both for family and friends, but also as a memorable gift idea. That's why I want to offer the sponsor of today's segment 1, SeatGeek, a huge shout out. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. So whether you're an Irish fan looking for a ticket to the home opener versus A&M, or the Zach Bryan concert this Saturday in South Bend, or any of college football season's defining matchups down the road, SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dot. Green means good, red means bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use Irish10, that's all capitalized and the number 10, for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. 10% off any tickets with promo code Irish10. Make sure to click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you to SeatGeek. We'll be back with segment 2, Burning Up the Boards. Segment 2, Burning Up the Boards, is brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame in Elkhart, Indiana. In addition to the museum and various exhibition halls, the campus is open to the public for free camping and is less than an hour from Notre Dame's campus. No reservation is required. Whether you're looking to learn more about the history of recreational vehicles in the Kindlin Library or simply for a cost-effective, interesting place to stay on your family road trip, the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame can provide exactly what you're looking for. Our first question, Burning Up the Boards, comes from Callahan Auto Parts, which is a fantastic name. Name one position group you're most disappointed in Sunday. Callahan says, mine is tight end. Raridan looked tentative. I changed his wording, by the way. No depth behind him, and this offense needs a tight end. I have faith in other groups will get better. I'm worried about tight end.
Go ahead, guys.
I mean, it's the O-line for me. Raridan had 1 or 2 drops as he eased into the game. He also made a very significant game-changing play. And it was quote unquote routine in that moment because he was so open. Sometimes that's not the easiest catch in the world to make when you see that. The offensive line, like we heard people talking on campus, and we heard this coaching staff talking about how good they were on the offensive line, and the coaching staff didn't say it, but we heard all the Joe Moore Award whispers, and that offensive line, as Pete Sampson said, didn't have 5 rotational players. on Sunday night. It will get better. I'm sure it will get better. It'd be hard for it to get worse. But that to me is by far the most disappointing. And I think the tight end position will grow with Washington and Larson as the season goes along, and whenever they can get a couple of those or get Flanagan, yeah,
Flanagan.
James Flanagan, and then later on Cooper Flanagan. So I think that position will grow. I don't think we expected to exit game one saying, God, that offensive line has really got to grow.
Yeah, I mean, offensive line's the answer. Tight end, I was almost more like disappointed in the fact like that's all they got. Like it's just Eli Raridon. Like you're at the goal line and you're having Will Pauling essentially play tight end, and Malachi Fields play tight end, and you're trying to run behind that and get it's not working. So yeah, that was I think it was probably more disappointing that like Notre Dame is just in this position where they have one functional tight end opposed to how either Raridan did or did not play. To be different, I don't know. Like the safety play was, Jalen Stroman played well, I thought. Schuler and Talich less so. And I thought Schuler would be a locked on, like bring it every game. So I
Yeah.
guess
Like he was last year.
yeah, I guess my answer is just like if you were a captain, I thought you would have played well, and that was not a safe assumption against Miami.
Speaking of captains that didn't play well, and I swear to God, he had to be cramping at the end of the game. But Emil Wagner, I mean, unless he just like forgot everything that he's been taught about technique, he had to have lower body cramps because he was, what was he doing? He was doing he
Yeah,
was
it was
trying
like
to
he
block
was
people with his
getting big
arms.
to scare away a bear.
Yeah, and I,
Well,
if you
he had a
if
bear
you
across from him, but it was a
Yeah.
polar
it
bear
did
apparently.
Still ran by
those
him.
those two defensive ends, Bain and
They won.
Messador were really good. By the way, I just want to say this. Do you know who CJ Carr eluded and then threw the touchdown pass to Micah Gilbert? Sometimes known as Malachi Gilbert by the press box announcer.
He had a good day, the press box announcer.
Oh
Huh?
boy.
It's not,
And also Makai Gilbert
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
and
He
Kingston
had to
Ilianos.
he had to he man he brutalized that name a few times. Carr had to avoid Moten, the defensive tackle. Had it been one of those defensive ends, and it was on the edge, and I thought, which defensive end is it? But it was Moten,
Yeah.
and he was able to avoid him and then make the touchdown pass. But Emil Wagner we know he's better than that. It just looked to me like he couldn't move his lower body late in the game. He's a much better football player than that. The hydration thing, I mean, you can talk about being prepared hydration wise, and they're at a point now where they've never been, emphasis on that has never been more acute than it is now, and you still can't avoid it many times.
No, you can't. Actually, Mike Goolsby, who probably played in this type of weather, said this. He said during the
Yeah.
game, this is humidity is a bigger problem than anybody
Yep.
ever wants to admit.
Yep.
I mean, offensive line's my answer, but the part I like about Callahan here is when he says there's not enough depth behind him. We need to see if Ty Washington can bring it as a blocker at the goal line too, like Notre Dame usually has in their number 2 tight end. It's just important because I like Larson, I like Flanagan, but they're redshirt freshmen and freshmen. That's not fifth year Kevin Bauman, junior year Cooper Flanagan. So the depth behind Raridan is an issue. I agree, Raridan. I think it might not be fair to say he looked tentative, but Tim, I said to you that was the worst timing on a screen you could find on a tight end screen that probably should have worked. Was it because Wagner gave up? I mean, you're supposed to let the defensive end in. Was it too straight of a line so he couldn't get there? Was the line late getting out? Did Raridan take a false step? JBA, I'm going to turn it over to you. I thought everything was off with Raridan in the game.
Yeah, that play you're talking about was the little tight end screen in the middle of the field, and it was weird from Wagner to Absher and Raridan almost colliding to the ball being right behind them. You wonder where the false step was. Also on Ty Washington, we saw him start to go in, and then I think there was a stoppage of play where he was, I think, going to go in a goal to go situation for the Irish. I'm reminded of the fact that Marcus voluntarily told us maybe with 10 days before the season started or something that Ty Washington had been battling a wrist injury and had been out and had missed some practice because of that. So maybe that wrist injury is why in this game they didn't have the confidence in Ty Washington in those heavy sets to get the blocking done at the goal line, but they expect him to recover from that moving forward and to be better. And we'll probably get to this, but I've been asking this, so I'll ask it. We talk about player adjustments game 1 to game 2. How much is there a Chris Ash adjustment game 1 to game 2?
Well, this goes to, I'm going to go to Pete on this one because we didn't sit. We stood with bemusement when I asked this question and got the answer I didn't want. From CP11, I did not understand the defensive rotations. I thought certain guys got hurt because I didn't see them down on the field. I understand it was hot and humid, but when it's close or Notre Dame is down, the best players need to play. And on a related note, Eddie Davis too, how long will it take Ash to realize KVA has to be on the field every snap?
Ooh, yeah, I didn't understand the rotations either. I was pretty sure Devonta Smith got hurt.
Yeah, that's what I said to
But
Tim.
he was actually just rotating. And then like I think Tay Johnson was in like at the end of the game.
He was in on one of the touchdowns too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was sort of confused by that one. I didn't think there was anything like necessarily egregious. It was just confusing. I don't know if it was like good or bad. So, but yes, the KVA part is. I don't know where you go with that. Are you
More
taking?
snaps is what it needs. More
Are
snaps.
you taking Drake? Who are you taking off?
Well, that's the point. I mean, not every down. They have four. They have four. You're not gonna.
No, but more. You could have more downs out of Kingston Viliamu-Asa, right?
Yes.
He's the
Oh,
best
absolutely,
linebacker. Yeah. So
absolutely.
I want to point out, and let you guys both go to this. Max Bulla chooses the rotation at linebacker. Mike Mickens chooses the rotation in the secondary. Al Washington chooses the rotation at the defensive end, unless Chris Ash steps in and says,
Right.
give me this. So that is how it works, 100%. We know Dylan McCullough and Jawan Sider choose their rotations in the past and in the present. So it's the position coach. Coordinator can step in and say, can we go with more of this?
Yeah. Pete, I wasn't. I'm sorry, JB. I wasn't. Well, Tim, I said to you, where's Devontae Smith? But it was always suspected.
We got a question on this one too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Am I walking over it? I
Yep.
mean, I guess I can save it then. But I wasn't necessarily confused by the rotation per se. They're going to rotate linebackers. They're going to rotate defensive linemen. The Devontae Smith thing, I think, is a matchup issue.
Yeah, but they didn't have
that.
that issue with how they didn't have that issue in the last 3 years. They did not rotate their nickel out. Just for fans watching, the nickel played more than any linebacker on the entire team.
Right, but those are different. They were different kind of players.
Like, I guess we didn't know that though.
I mean, when they brought in their third and long package, like if you said like who are your best pass rushers, I'm not sure I would have chosen the guys that were out there.
Right. They had two Alamaka
and I think Botello and who else? Like Dawson was out there. Like I thought that was where like, all right, let's get Young and Traore out there together. Maybe move Young inside.
Yes.
So that was. I was like, all right, well, they know way better than we do. It was just like that wasn't what I had in my mind of like, this is what this is going to look like.
Now, I'd been told Saturday and then again Sunday, actually on my way to the stadium, that Hobbs was going to play a lot, that he was expected to play a lot, that they liked him in coverage. I would also posit maybe Hobbs ended up playing a bit more because they were so ineffective with their pass rush that they felt they needed the guy that they believed was a little better in coverage, a little more fluid in coverage. I think Dante Smith is considered more of a thumper. They like him more around the line of scrimmage. I think that ties into some of it, or probably tied into some of it. On KVA, I agree. Like I know Ash had told some people like we don't need to have that guy leave the field, and that's not to suggest anything. That was just like he was really impressed exiting spring with KVA and said like we're going to have a hard time keeping this guy off the field in a very most positive way. That's not him. Don't read any second guessing or nonsense into that. That's just saying they've seen it from KVA, and again, I bet the volume goes up from here.
We've seen it from KVA.
Yeah.
I understand that completely. And frankly, I thought the two best linebackers Saturday were him and Osbury.
They were, but the problem is that means it's KVA and Osbury and Bowen is sitting a lot more.
Yeah.
That's you wouldn't have expected Bowen to be the third best linebacker in the game or the fourth best linebacker in the game going into the game. You just don't think that.
No,
way.
but He was this
Yeah.
Saturday
Yeah.
or Sunday.
Tim, we
Uh,
go ahead. Let's touch on the nickel here since we broached it. We could dump that question.
Well, anytime a guy verbally commits transfer portal to Notre Dame, I try to I try to find everything I can on that player. And everything I saw in Devontae Smith, man, he's a thumper at the line of scrimmage. I didn't see too many highlights of him in pass coverage. And so Hobbs, I understand the choice, but I think this is another situation where we don't get to see hardly any practice. And I've never seen Carson Hobbs really good in pass coverage in practice. He was not the full practice that we had on July 31st. He was, Drew Mentek will comment about this. He was not good that day in coverage, and he was not good Sunday.
I will add to that very quickly because people, I'm sure, read over it. When they acquired Devontae Smith, I, of course, asked the writer for every website to talk about the player that just came to Notre Dame. So for Malachi Fields, went to Virginia site, etc. The Alabama guys said, heck of a hitter. Coverage is, quote, meh, unquote, was exactly what he wrote. That was all he wrote. And so I thought, well, he doesn't play nickel. So that'll be interesting. Yeah. And I'm still not sure Hobbs was to blame on that touchdown, to be honest with you. I think he had to have somebody over the top.
Yeah, I think it's hard to know what
Well,
what
that's
Luke
fair.
Tellich's assignment is on that play.
That's fair. He got beat at the jump on that though, but maybe he's thinking he's got help.
Yeah.
On the
He looked mad
backside
about
of it.
something. Now I know he could get mad because he got beat, but he was mad about something.
Yeah,
Like
that's
I was
fair.
watching him quite a bit. This question is from Tech Domer. I know it's very cliche to blame play calling after a tough loss, but that was the most perplexed I've been by an offensive game plan since the monsoon game at NC State. So my question is, when was the last time you went into a big game like that, expecting X, maybe a healthy dose of runs from the best player, and instead saw Y?
Go ahead, guys.
Brandon Wimbush throwing 40 times against Georgia.
Ties in.
I was actually in the stands for that game, not working that game. Ended up with really posh free tickets, but and I'll take them.
That's neither here nor there, but go
Yeah.
on, JB.
Posh free tickets from somebody who also rented my house that week. But anyway, so it was doubly gold.
Mark Richt?
You know, I think that the in prisoner of the moment, you want to say, oh, it's this game. But I think what we're coming to grips with is that they knew this offensive line is further behind the perception of where this offensive line is. So I don't have a real good one. Maybe 2019 at Michigan. But that game was just like that's maybe the last time I saw a Notre Dame team initially not meet the physical challenge as much as this one initially did not meet the physical challenge Sunday night. I don't know.
I'm not going to speculate on that, but again, Tim and I were actually seated separately going into the game, and I just can't have that. I got to bounce ideas off of them during the game, and what my
You
idea.
could have just looked to your right or left because that's where everything was happening in the game anyway, as opposed
Well,
to straight ahead.
that's true. That's
We had
true,
the worst
but,
view, like that end zone view.
But the way Denbrock opened things, getting the ball to Faison, it's like, okay, because in the preseason we're talking about, well, Faison's going to be like the third or fourth option behind Fields and Pauling, guys that have caught a bunch of passes. And so he accentuated Faison. I'm like, okay, good. Now you can expand a little bit. You can get the ball to Love. You can get the ball to Fields. You've now established a tone that you can move the football around to some of the guys that are more likely to be your top targets. Well, they get the ball to Fields and he fumbles, and then everything starts to go haywire with the offense. Defense can't get off the field. I do want to say, I don't know if we're going to address this, but again, rewatching the game, am I correct in this? There were 4 straight series in the second half. Miami didn't have a first down.
I thought it was 3. Yeah,
And maybe it was maybe it was 3. So, like again, rewatching a game, it's like everybody's down on Ash and fire him the same way they wanted Al Golden fired after his first game.
No,
as
you're right. It was 4,
coordinator.
but they kicked a field goal. It was 4, but they kicked a field goal. That's
Okay,
that's not the defense's fault though.
No, so 4 straight. Like don't we have a question about adjustments? I mean, how's that not an adjustment? I will say that you're more. I don't know about you guys, but I'm way more cognizant now of zone coverages now that Golden is gone.
Yeah,
and the coverages, I mean, just don't look as sticky as they used to be. I realize that that's the nature of zone coverage, but It seemed like there were just too many release passes to move the chains that were just too easy for Miami at times.
I
I
think
think
go ahead, JB.
I was just going to briefly say in that stretch, kudos for the defense getting off the field. Miami changed. Like
Yeah, that's
Miami had a 21-7 lead,
True.
and Miami absolutely went into let's meld as much clock mode. We've given up 7 points through 45 minutes. I like our chances to get out of here with a win.
yeah.
And
That was my point.
I talked to Miami people who said, like, quote, if we'd lost that game, we'd been kicking ourselves for how conservative we got. So,
Before those, it was 8 plays downs, 8 plays touchdown, a 3 and out, 10 plays, 75 yards touchdown,
But they were,
12
but
plays,
in
75
those
yards touchdown.
drives, they were pounding the ball with their big backs.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when they did it later in the fourth quarter to run clock, what have you, Notre Dame was stopping the run
He
at
did
that.
trip on 3rd and 1. I don't know if he was going to
yeah,
get
Ah,
yeah.
that's true.
They had
That's
a
true.
couple of
Yep.
penalties that
Yep.
put them behind the sticks
Yep.
too. That are
Fair enough.
It's
sort of
still
hit
there
the
were still
roof.
more adjustments than I think Ash is going to get credit for, but there's some circumstances involved in that too, I think. From Wash ND, then we had to get into this one. In terms of personnel, when Jagisa comes back, he is the left tackle, right? The question I put the inflection in there because I assume that's how he wrote it. Actually, to be fair, I edited a lot of choice words that were involved in this question, so I know that's how he asked the
Well, it's
question.
fun. It's funny that before this game, there was suggestion that when Jog you saw again, looking at the pronunciation, I got to tell you about pronunciations. Remind me, not the press box guy, but before the game on Saturday, it was like, okay, when Joggerson comes back, he's going to move into a guard spot. Now, with the way that Knapp struggled a little bit, now we're saying he'll be at the tackle spot. Guys, I got to tell you this, and only you will probably appreciate it. But on the flip chart, which is what the media gets, they have pronunciations. And in the Notre Dame pronunciations, one of the names is Ruke Orororo, the former defensive lineman for Clemson. What is he doing on the flip chart for Notre Dame? I don't know how that happened.
How much does he weigh now, and can he play tackle
Yeah.
or nose tackle?
He's in the NFL.
Yeah, all right, well, that'd be great.
While that wasn't about the press box guy, you should tell the press box guy about pronunciations.
Oh my God.
I wish people could understand how, and it's the voice of God. He loves his voice, man.
It's the moderator. If you watch the James Franklin, Marcus Freeman Orange Bowl press conference, it's that moderator who is also the
And the,
voice of God in Hard Rock Stadium.
and the thing that before James Franklin angered Marcus Freeman that day, it was this gentleman who was telling the media where they would be eating dinner tonight and how you can arrange transportation too. And Marcus is looking like, I've got stuff to do here, pal.
Pete's word is gravitas, I believe, when we have this that
Yeah.
voice, right? Isn't that right, Pete?
He was over gravitasing it.
I'm going to go to Pete with this one because I want to put you on the spot. From Danny Sherburn. This is a question I've had before, and to be honest, he actually CC'd Priester and I, but I'm going to ask you instead, Pete. But it's relevant today. How much do you think your analysis and assessment of the team contributes to the overall hype? They were more talented than last season. They were stronger on the O line and D line. Led the way. The O line and D line led the way this summer, but those seem like misses right now.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Which I understand. Like people listen to these podcasts and read our stuff, and they sort of take it as gospel. Sometimes it's just relaying what the coach said. Sometimes it's talking to people in the program, and they're like, "Hey, this is what's happening. This is a real concern." Like, ooh, or we really love this guy. Like last year, that was Leonard Moore. They really loved that guy in the summer, and they're like, "This guy is going to be great." Well, it turns out they were right. He was great. But yeah, I think that probably the biggest miss across the board, what we had written about, what we had heard straight on the record, what we had heard on background was the offensive line. Like that, the defensive line. I think Traore and Young will be great. I thought Traore actually was really good.
I think he's a defensive player of the game.
Yeah.
Other than he made the most impact.
But look, when Freeman gets up there, it's like these defensive tackles are the best I've ever seen. Like that's not exactly what he said, but he did say Jason Onye was the best defensive tackle he's had here at Notre Dame, or he'd had the best camp.
Best camp, yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't know about that. And then we watched the game, and it was like, yeah, you're wrong. Like that just can't be true. So, yeah, you have to parse these things apart. But Danny Sherburn has a point that like if you just read and listened to everything that's said in the preseason, it didn't quite line up with what we saw.
I don't think that's fair. We never said the defensive line was better. We said the defensive ends were better. They just lost Cross and Mills. We didn't say the
Yeah, no,
defensive
I'm just
line was
that's
better.
some like the defensive tackle is like that's on the head coach for saying what he said.
Yeah,
The
linebackers
offensive
are,
line, like we all wrote the offensive line is going to be really, really good.
and we all said the linebackers are going to be good, but they were good last year, and they had Kaiser, and he was a leader of it. We've said that multiple times. We never said the safeties would be better.
No,
When did
I
we
talked
say?
about Xavier Watts so much, I realized I got to stop talking about him because he's not coming back. I mean,
Yeah,
all I
I mean,
said was Xavier Watts is going to be missed all for 9 months. Then I'm like, well, he's not there anymore. I got to quit saying it. Right? He's not
yeah.
there anymore. I got to
Yeah.
quit talking about the guy.
I've talked
We
about,
they're going to be
yeah,
worse.
I've talked about how good I thought the linebackers would be and how athletic they were, and they're not why Notre Dame lost Sunday night, but they also didn't help deliver a win for Notre Dame on Sunday night. I would again point out, and it's not excuse making because we relay the information we're all given on and off the record. This is again the least we've seen of a preseason camp under Marcus Freeman, by their design. And then I've said for months on end, and I'll continue to say it, like the Gerby Lambert injury in March was significant because it ended before it could have begun any sort of competition at left tackle. And I think we all have respect for Anthony Knapp, and what he did last year was Herculean as a true freshman on that gauntlet and playing as effectively as he did from game one onward. But I would still like to see Gerby Lambert battle Anthony Knapp, all things equal, to be Notre Dame's starting left tackle.
Priest, you agree, though, that we do end up, our opinions end up kind of forming things for fans because they don't get to see anything. And
I agree.
Yeah.
And last year we said they could win them all. This
Yeah.
year, I, I I mean, I know JB has said it, and I think we all felt it. If you win the first two games, yeah, you could win them all. But I said multiple times last year they could win them all. That hasn't really been anything that said along the way this
Yeah.
year.
I said I thought they'd go 10-2. I still think they're going to go 10-2.
There's nobody like that when you said that, I bet.
We have a lot. We have a lot of podcasts and a lot of
Yes.
opinions, and they change throughout the course of camp because, like Pete said, you hear this, you hear that, then people kind of hear what they want with what we say. Look, there's no doubt. I mean, I think that this is still a really, really good football team that should still make the playoffs.
I think this is relevant, and I just want to bring it up because I got absolutely skewered for writing this in Monday Musings. Okay. The final concerns. Everybody chimed in. Our whole staff chimed in. These are my final concerns. I had 7. Quarterback play in the first 2 games. So far proven wrong. Field goal kicking. So far proven wrong. 1 for 1. Defensive interior. I keep noting this. They have 5 rotational linemen. They could use a real starter. Number 4, the offensive line's health. Let's face it, they were deeper last season. The portal, coupled with success of 2024, is the root cause and dearth of proven players on this line. Annihilated for saying it. Who was playing left tackle? Styles Prescott. What happened?
Yeah, that would have been one of those things if it was like, hey, this is what's going to happen on Sunday. You're going to try to close the game with Styles Prescott. I'd be like, whoa. I mean, that.
Next was the tight ends behind Eli Raridan. Max Clare was a clear number 1 target, but he joined the only team better than Notre Dame. Can't do much about that. Safety, especially opposite of Don Schuler. Well, it could have been a Don Schuler. And number 7, and this was what was called unfair by everyone, Al Golden is gone. I'm logically hopeful new defensive coordinator Chris Ash will lock it down as well. But how would you feel if Golden year 4 were here instead of Ash year 1?
Yeah.
That's 5 of 7. Thankfully,
We might.
quarterback is no longer one of them, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's going to be good. Look, we have a lot of podcasts and we say a lot of things. And one day we feel optimistic about one guy, and then 3 days later we don't because we saw something or we heard something. You know, we could just go ahead and keep all these opinions to ourselves and then not be wrong about it. But
we'd all be fired, but that'd be fine.
yeah,
too.
I mean that's not what we do. We talk about things we feel and hear and anticipate, and sometimes we're wrong. And I like the last thing I expected Sunday night was for Notre Dame to kind of play passively.
Yeah.
What if I had said in the preseason, I think Notre Dame's going to open up and they're not going to play with a whole lot of passion
That's true.
Sunday night. I would have got killed saying that. So that wasn't one that
We might have killed you. We would have killed you.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't in a position to speculate about that.
Next question from Matt Lozar. What's the adjustment for short yardage situations? It's surprising we didn't see packages with multiple tight ends or a multiple offensive linemen. I mean, I think he means an extra tackle. Using wide receivers on the edge doesn't feel like the answer. This is a good question because it's not an easy answer.
Yeah, guys, where do they
We
go
talked
from
about
here?
this
They
in the
need time.
preseason. What happens without Riley Leonard? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
no doubt.
also like Aeneas Williams very obviously still has the giant brace on his right arm. I think that's a short yardage issue right now.
I think you have to spread it out in short yardage. I mean, it's like to try to play like this is 2020 and you're in 14 personnel. Like you don't have four tight ends. You barely have two tight ends. So yeah, I think you got to spread it out. I mean, it sounds dumb to be like you should be in four wide on third and
No,
one, but
I'm with you.
but maybe they should be in four wide on third and one. That's the personnel situation is a little like it's not where Notre Dame has been for a long, long time.
I
Yeah,
thought Denbrock did a nice job, or had a good feel for when to deploy some design runs for CJ Carr, and I'll defer to a coach who had told me going into the game, like he needs to be able to move his quarterback around. Like when Mike Denbrock has his best offenses, he doesn't have to have
Oh yeah.
Jaden Daniels' athleticism, but he's got to have a guy he can move around. And I thought he did a service to CJ Carr with not just calling those, but his feel for calling those, I thought overall was very good.
there was one time, having rewatched the game, I think it was McDonough that said, "Well, this is a situation where last year Mike Denbrock would have had Riley Leonard run the football, and on that play, CJ Carr ran the football just to see what of what he was credited with 11 quote rushes. He was sacked 3 times. He took a knee. So seven rushes. I think we're going to see that he's capable of doing it.
Scrambled
I,
once, probably right. So it's a good.
yeah, I don't,
That's good.
one time he kind of took on a defender. He doesn't need to be doing anything like that.
Yeah.
He's not as equipped as Riley Leonard was with that, but I think it's still part of, for right or wrong, I think it's still part of the repertoire that Denbrock's going to tap into.
I want to just go to what Pete said because I feel this way about short yardage situations in modern college football when you're facing monstrous defensive linemen. I think you spread it out too. Even when Notre Dame had the best three tight ends blocking they possibly could, they still couldn't line up in 2020 and move Alabama off the ball on 4th and 1. I mean, you might not have beaten them in space either. But what I'm saying is, when you're playing a real defensive line and you say, all right, let's see who can do this on 4th and 2, you better have Riley Leonard running that ball, not because any little mistake, like CJ Carr, maybe he was going to get a first down when Gerby Lambert got blown up on one play, right? You need perfect execution against maniacs coming in when they're loaded for bear. They have no responsibility but to penetrate your line. So I'm with you, Pete. Maybe not the rest of the schedule after A&M. They might be able to play a little bully ball for a while, but it's hard against a defensive line, as JB likes to say, SEC defensive line, which is what Miami, I think, had.
Yeah. We have a couple questions here stacked together. One from W Carry 14. Is it okay to not have the sky is falling feeling after that game? I might be naive, but I think this coaching staff has earned some equity to figure out why it played a C- game and improve moving forward. And then from the Irish Bogey, is it wrong to not be all that worried after a close top 10 loss to a top 10 team? I've never been this confident in an Irish team after a loss. Some optimism.
I think both perspectives are fine because I share them. But that's not why they're fine. I think they're also accurate. I just Notre Dame has a lot of material on this roster. They have a very good coaching staff. The word equity is probably a good one by W Carry 14. I think they've sort of earned the benefit of the doubt that they'll get this figured out. The schedule after A&M lightens up considerably. I just don't think it's all that weird to lose to a top 10 team on the road in a place you haven't won in 1977 with the first time starting quarterback. That's just not weird to me that happened.
It's weird to me how it happened. It's not weird to me that it happened.
I
He
mean,
told me Miami will play great and beat Notre Dame by a field goal. I'll be, all right, that's probably a good game to watch. Let's go watch this game happen. Not timidity would be a word I used the entire time I was sitting there.
You made
It's all right.
Tim, when you rewatch the game, you may feel a little bit
I've
differently.
rewatched
Maybe
some of the
not.
game. I
Okay.
know. Do you think that was the Marcus Freeman coach hair on
No,
fire Warriors that go into a game?
no, Absolutely
That's how they
not.
lost. That's how they
Absolutely
lost.
not. And that's again, for us to predict that, that's the absolute last thing that would be expected.
I wouldn't think the offensive line would be one of the main reasons they lost the game either. That would cause for pause too. I mean, I can't believe that happened. I think it's a good perspective.
I mean, we weren't talking. Remember what the preseason narrative was about Miami's tackles. They're young and they're unproven. Even we were getting intel from their camp that not sure yet, and the depth isn't there. Well, that D line won the day.
Yeah.
And
Priester, I want to ask you this for the second part of this question. Bogey says, I've never been this confident in an Irish team after a loss. The most confident I've seen you after a loss was Georgia 17. You were
when
the
I said they
only
were gonna
one
win
that
them.
said they were going to roll, and then they did until
Well, Drew
I
Tranquil as well.
yeah, Drew Tranquil and Tim
Right.
Priester. Yes.
He's
Two
a
peas
little
in a
biased.
pod.
That's not, yeah, that's not fair. I can't say I feel that confident because when there's uncertainty at defensive tackle, I mean that's just the belly of your defense. And I was absolutely felt that way in 2017.
Bryce, confidence level in what do you? I mean, would you say now that they're 11-1 instead of 10-2 type thing? Like, what's your confidence level? You think they drop one more?
Yeah. I think they're
Just
capable of,
spitballing, not like you're
yeah,
analyzing.
no. I think they're capable of winning every single game left on their schedule. They also have a margin of error that doesn't give them a lot of grace to take any games on their schedule for granted. So I mean, I'm not doomsday skies falling on this team. I think it's a great thing that they have 2 weeks to recover from the physicality of this game and to find some answers from this game. But I would answer your question with this question, like for what we saw this weekend, who do you think feels better about their teams right now? Clemson fans, Alabama fans, or Notre Dame fans?
Not Alabama fans is the official answer to that question.
It can't be Clemson
No,
fans.
it can't. But it
They,
can't be
lo-
Alabama either.
they lost at home. They couldn't run the.
Yeah.
They
They
lost
could
at
do
home.
nothing.
They lost at home with one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the NFL, or I mean in college football, who's widely projected as a first round NFL draft pick, and they were irrelevant. And also, like, by the way, guys, UTSA, which has only been D1 for 15-ish years or so, and I love Jeff Traylor. He's done a great job there. They just gashed Texas A&M for over 200 yards. They also didn't throw an interception and completed almost 67% of their passes. And they were in that game deep for a long time. So I'm not deflecting. I'm just saying you should take heart in where Notre Dame is because this is not college football of just even 3 years ago, where an early season loss was so debilitating and where there were more super teams. There is more parity in the sport, which means you can go win every game. You just have less margin of error to assume every game. But that
Final
UTSA
question is
game,
on.
oh, sorry. I would just close by this. That UTSA game was 28-17 midway through the third quarter.
Yeah, the one thing I know I didn't watch that game, but the one thing I worry about in those situations when you're comparing is how much Texas A&M was preparing for UTSA as opposed to their greater test coming up, and how much you get you get your Texas A&M transient portal athletes to buy into how much UTSA might provide a threat to you. Kind of like when Notre Dame plays a MAC team as opposed to other teams at home. That happens too, but it's the 200 rushing yards is a lot different than complete pass completion percentage because that's physicality that you should match. Pass completion sometimes is, they can't beat us with this. This last question, I don't want to talk about playoffs. Martin Evenflow, at least not first. Would you classify A&M as a must-win? I want to put that under the culture situation. Let's say Notre Dame can go 10-0 easily if they lose to A&M. Do you classify this game, though, considering how the hype of the season, how Notre Dame's culture is it a must-win right now to beat Texas A&M?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Because if you lose this, you're off the radar for the rest of the season. You might even still make the playoff. But I'm
Right.
saying
That's why I want to take that out.
I
You
wasn't
can
supposed
still
to
be
use
the
that
11th
word,
seed.
but
Yeah.
you are, and I don't even like the word irrelevant, but you are off the front page of college football by September 14th. through Thanksgiving weekend at a minimum. I think that it would be it would feel like lose the Oklahoma loss in 2013, which also came after a national championship game run, where you're just like, ugh, what? Like this is it? Like it would just feel like a air was totally out of the balloon.
And even though it's testament to last year's great run, it would be a third straight loss. So it would be your third loss in a row to very quality opposition, which just cracks the door for naysayers
Yeah.
to craft narratives that could be false, but would nonetheless percolate. So, yeah, you guys know better than me. I tried to look this up because I was talking to somebody else about it on the phone and I didn't get time. When is the last time Notre Dame started a season 0-2?
Oh, well, 2011 they definitely did. So that would probably be it. That was South Florida and an absolute incredible loss at Michigan. That's the crazy one, Pete. The 35, the huge lead, 31-7 lead lost on
Oh yeah.
the Gary Gray finish. So 2011 they would have been 0-2. That would be the one. And that season ended right there. That season ended right there. They weren't as good of a team, obviously, but no one bought in until mid-season, and then they face planted against USC. I think you guys are both right. And when you say the narrative doesn't matter, it won't matter to Marcus Freeman and the coaching staff. Like you're 0-2, you can still focus on winning every game and go 10-2. It does matter to the outside world, just like the narrative that Notre Dame is back all off season mattered to the outside world. You can't have one without the other. You can't say Notre Dame is back and they have the good graces of everyone and then say the opposite doesn't matter.
Okay, they actually also started 0-2 in 2022 because they had Ohio State and then
Oh, yeah, that's right. Marshall.
Yeah. So it's not been that long, but then they were irrelevant.
That was 3 losses in a row too. It was Oklahoma
was.
State, Ohio State, and Marshall.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was another thing where Notre Dame weren't they were top 10 when that year started?
Yes,
Yeah.
they were.
To Ohio State, and then they were irrelevant for the rest of the season.
Correct.
That's like just
How did I forget
you
Marshall?
just don't want to live there.
I couldn't remember if Marshall was game 2 or game 3. I couldn't remember the Marshall Cal sequence versus the Cal Marshall sequence.
God,
Yeah,
they were 0-2.5 against Cal too at halftime. That was not good.
Yeah. Why would we not remember the beginning of the 22 season? Why would we have placed that out of our memory?
Good point. You don't want to start 0-2. I don't think we'll start 0-2, but you don't want to start 0-2. We will not be 0-2 this week. We're going to have 2 good podcasts. The next one will be Thursday, September 4th. Do I have my dates right, Jack? I think that's accurate. Either way, Thursday will be the next podcast. So for Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, Pete Sampson of The Athletic, John Bryce of Football Scoop, I am Tim O'Malley. Thanks for watching and listening to Irish Illustrated Insider.